Today, you guys are here for Josh Klemons. He's a digital storyteller, strategist, and the founder of Reverbal Communications, helping brands of all shapes and sizes find, hone, and tell their stories online. He's done digital work with local, statewide, and national campaigns, tiny nonprofits, Fortune 500 companies, and everything in between. He writes, teaches, trains, presents, and consults regularly on social media, digital marketing, and the ways brands can reach, engage, and expand their audiences online. He's the host of Step Up Your Social, a podcast consisting of short episodes, about 10 minutes or less, dedicated to quick, actionable tips to help brands take their digital marketing to the next level. You can listen to all episodes at stepupyoursocial.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Please give a warm DreamBank welcome to Josh Klemons.
How's everybody doing? Thanks so much for joining me today. There's definitely an echo. It wasn't just Jake, it's the room. Good to know. So thank you all for coming and thank you all for streaming online and joining us in the comments. So I like to start anytime I'm talking about social media with any group of people, I always like to start with two very simple questions. When's the last time you logged onto social media hoping to see somebody pitching something to you? Nobody. Okay, pretty normal. When's the last time you went online and tried to pitch something to somebody? Right? We've all done it. It definitely happens. It's okay. That's what marketing is, right? There's a broken dichotomy though. We are not using social media the same as marketers as we are as users, and that is limiting our future successes always, because nobody wants to see your pitch. They want you to bring them in. They want you to add value to their life, or they want you to get out of the way. So it's very important, and this is going to be the baseline for everything we talk about today. It's very important to always remember why you're on social as a user, and if you're not matching that as a marketer, right there, you're starting off on the wrong foot. Let's start right off the bat with defining what social media is. I like to say social media is the world's largest coffee shop, bazaar, political debate, and bulletin board all rolled into one. It's billions of people coming together to have a conversation, to connect, to do interesting things, and not one of them is there to hear your pitch, right? But that doesn't mean that you can't get in front of them, and that's what we're going to talk about. So today we're going to talk about 10 different tips and strategies to help you take your social media to the next level. I will leave time for questions at the end, but if there's anything I talk about today that you're confused about, by all means, raise your hand. That's on me, not on you. I want to make sure we're all on the same page, so let me know. But any bigger questions we'll take at the end. So we're going to go through 10 tips and strategies for you to optimize your social. And you start right off the bat with optimizing your accounts. Let's say you have a storefront and you've spent a fortune. You've made this an amazing, beautifully curated storefront. But outside, you haven't mowed the lawn in 6 months. And the sidewalk's broken. And the door looks like it's locked even though it's not. When you don't optimize your accounts, you're essentially starting off by telling people you're not paying attention. Even if your content is amazing, your accounts have to match the level of your content. And that's why we're going to start with what I think is probably, it's a good starting place. Let's put it that way. If you haven't optimized your accounts, you're missing an opportunity to make sure people understand who you are and what you're about right from the get-go. So very quickly, I'm just going to walk us through 4 different channels: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. But I will say this applies to anything you're doing. It can apply to your website. It can apply to your Pinterest account. Anything you're doing, if you want people to check you out, make sure you put the time in to make your accounts look like you've taken the time to put into them. So right off the bat, we've got a clear avatar. An avatar, for those who don't know, it's like your cover photo. Your business has one. Your personal accounts have one too. Now, on this computer screen, it's pretty big, right? On this TV, most people see it, it's about that big, right? It's a tiny little picture, and the biggest mistake people make with their avatar is they try to do too much. They want it to be their logo, their name, their phone number, their address. That's too much. Nobody's going to be able to read that. Keep it simple to the point, and I recommend you change it never. Once it's set up and there, don't change it, because it's one of the first things people are going to see when they see your content out in the world. They're going to be able to identify you with your avatar. If you want to add a pumpkin for Halloween, fine. But don't radically be changing your avatar on a regular basis, because it's a huge part of how people are going to recognize your brand. Your cover photo, on the other hand, can change as often as you want, because nobody's going to see that until they actually get to your account. So by then, they've already sort of started to build a relationship with you, even if it's beginning. Your cover photo is a huge piece of real estate in a world with very little huge pieces of real estate. So take advantage of your cover photo, tell a story. On Facebook, it can be a photo or a video. It can actually be a slideshow as well. So feel free to edit it as often as you want, but make sure it's always relevant. Don't let me log on to your Facebook page and see that you have an event coming up in 3 days that was actually 2 weeks ago, because I know you're not paying attention to your account. If you can't be bothered to update it, you're probably not taking the rest of your content seriously too. That's how I feel as a user. My URL, and I know you can't see it completely here, but it's facebook.com/reverbalcommunications. If you have a series of letters and numbers at the end of yours, which I would bet money at least 2 or 3 of you do, and that's okay, head over here to your About section and change it. You just need to clarify what your URL is. That way you can share it with people at events like this. Pretty simple. Your call to action. Facebook added in the call to action option a couple years back. I would say most people take advantage of this, but I still see maybe like 50% of accounts that haven't optimized it. It's not a magic button. It's not going to magically get you tons and tons of people to do what you ask them to do, but it is a way to let people know what your prime goal is. Do you want them to visit your website, sign up for your mailing list? Do you want them to watch your video? The coolest part about the call to action, in my opinion, if you're a brick and mortar store or a restaurant, you can set this up with a phone number, and right from the Facebook app, somebody could click that button and be prompted to call you. So it's a great way to like really encourage people to connect with you directly. Set it up, takes 20 seconds, just set it up. You never have to do it again. Your About section should be filled out to the best of your ability. You might have the best website that's ever existed. It's very important, and this is true in general. You do not expect people to come to you, go to them. You have a great website. They can find all that info on the website, but they're not looking at your website right now. They're looking at your Facebook page. Fill out your content to the best of your ability, where people are, and don't ever expect them to come to you. Life is too hectic. They're not going to. You're going to lose them in the process. Meet them where they are, and that's going to be a theme we're going to come back to a couple times throughout this session. Meet people where they are. Don't expect them to follow you where you want them to be. Pinning a post is super simple if you've never done it. Simply click this little drop-down menu and there'll be an option to pin a post. When you pin a post, it literally pins that post to the top of your Facebook feed. I like to say it's a nice little way to eke out a little bit more real estate. It's like rolling out a red carpet into your store. Like you just get a little bit more space before they go through and just see the everyday of your content. You do not need to have a pinned post, but if you do have a pinned post, it does need to be relevant now. So back to that idea, don't promote an event that's coming up if it already happened, because that makes it look like you're not taking it seriously. To unpin the post is very simple. Simply click that drop-down menu again and click unpin, or select a different post to pin, and it will replace it because you can only have one at a time. Pin post. Now, the last piece on optimizing your Facebook account is the hour story. Raise your hand if you've seen an hour story on Facebook. A few of us, and I'm going to assume less than that if set theirs up, and that's totally fine. Hour story is a relatively new feature, and I would say, I don't know, maybe 20% of the accounts I see are using it. It's right underneath the call to action. There's an option to, it's called Our Story. And this is what they show on the page. But if somebody clicks see more, it opens it up into something much wider. Oh, look, two of my, the two of you are both online, apparently. So Candy and Matt, exciting. So what's really cool about Our Story, the About section is a place for your phone number and your website and your email address. It's not a place to get more into depth. What's so cool about Our Story is that you can put photos in it, you can put GIFs in it, you can put links in it, you can format text with bold and italics and bullet points and all kinds of things. It's a really dynamic option for you to tell a much larger story right there on your Facebook page. Highly recommend you spend some time deciding what it is that you want people to like continue engaging with you on. Is it your products? Is it your team? Is it your mission? What is it? Pick something, tell a dynamic story. So Twitter, we're going to go through pretty quickly because it's very similar. You got your clear avatar. You'll notice my Facebook and Twitter avatars are the same. If that's possible for you, I recommend it. If not, that's okay. Sometimes there are reasons there's not. But you want people to recognize your brand every place as one brand, not many different brands. So if it's possible, keep the avatar the same. Cover photo, can't do videos or anything like that, but have your cover photo set up. You definitely want to take advantage of that. Make sure you fill out your bio. You'll only get 160 characters. Take advantage of them. That's how you tell people who you are, what you care about, what you do. If you are a local company based in Madison, Wisconsin, or anywhere in the world, you definitely want to say where you are in your bio. If you're a software company serving the world, it's okay to skip it maybe, but I probably still would add like where your headquarters is. But if you're local, you absolutely want to let people know you're part of a local community. Include that. And you should also include your website because why not? Like it's your bio. People might want to learn more about you. They can click through. And likewise, you'll see you can have a pinned post on Twitter, works exactly the same as Facebook. You'll notice on Facebook, I had a pinned post about a Facebook class I teach. On Twitter, I have a pinned tweet about a Twitter class I teach. So I'm doing what I can to talk to my audience where they are. If your content is the same on both, that's totally fine. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But if you can meet people where they are, the more you can meet people where they are, the better. LinkedIn. So raise your hand if you have a company page. If your company has a page on LinkedIn. Raise your hand if you mostly are using your personal profile. Right, so LinkedIn seems to heavily favor personal accounts, which is why this is not a picture of my company's page, even though it exists. This is my personal account, so let's just talk through this real quick. So professional headshot. That does not mean that you hire somebody and spend a fortune on a headshot. What I mean is don't be sitting on a beach or hanging out with your friends at a bar. This is LinkedIn. This is not the place. Unless you're in like, you know, if you're selling surfboards, great, be at the beach. But if you're trying to put off a business persona, your personal LinkedIn profile should look professional to whatever degree that makes sense for you. Cover photo, same idea. You don't get a lot, but you know, take advantage of it. You get 120 characters for your bio right here. Make sure you take advantage of that. I see a lot of people, myself included, like we like to come up with titles that aptly describe what we do. But if your title has the word goddess in it or ninja in it or something like that, that's a great title, but it's not what people are looking for on LinkedIn. So use that and then describe what you actually do. Because nobody's looking for a marketing ninja. They're looking for a marketing professional or a digital marketing expert. So make sure you're using the words that your audience is searching for, because LinkedIn in many ways is a search engine. People are going to go on there and search for those things, and LinkedIn is not smart enough to know, oh, well, it says ninja in his bio, but really he or she does this. That's not how it works. So make sure you use the words that people are actually searching for also. Now, see right here, reverbal communications is my business. I see this all the time with this box is grayed out because they don't have a company page. I would actually argue if there's one reason to have a company page, it's so that that box is filled in with your company. And if you're self-employed, create one. And if you're not self-employed, but you work for a company that doesn't have a LinkedIn company page, I highly recommend you encourage them to create one, literally just for that, because it looks much better to have a professional looking avatar than it does to have a gray box, an empty gray box. Bio, or your about section. You get 2,000 characters for your about section. Take advantage of them, of course. But really, the reason I include this here is not so we can talk about how to write your bio. It's to talk about the mistake I see all the time, which is people do not write for the audience they are intending to speak to. I once audited an account of a personal trainer, and she owned a business, and her account was all about how she could run payroll, how she hired and fired, how she started a business, which would be an amazing profile if she was looking for a job. But she was not looking for a job. She was looking for clients in the personal fitness space. And no client in the personal fitness space cares if you can run payroll. I hate to break it to you. That's just not what they're there for. You need to write your bio not to who you are, but to who your audience wants. And you need to define who you're trying to talk to and write your bio accordingly. If you're looking for a job, LinkedIn's a great place to put your resume. If not, you need to ask yourself, who are you trying to talk to, and write your bio accordingly. Lastly, on an optimized LinkedIn account, my LinkedIn URL, very simple, linkedin.com/in/Josh Klemons. If yours has a series of letters and numbers at the end, which I guarantee a few of yours does, there's a very simple fix for that. Go to bit.ly/revcom-li-URL. That's rev-comm-li-URL as in Verbal Communications LinkedIn URL. And I wrote a very simple blog post. The whole thing will take you 3 minutes to go in there and optimize your URL. You should be able to tell somebody your LinkedIn URL at a networking event. It's got a series of letters and numbers. That's not going to be possible. So lastly, real quick, let's just look at an Instagram account. Here's Ben & Jerry's, real clear avatar, very recognizable. You only get 150 characters for your Instagram profile. If you are an iconic brand like Ben & Jerry's, you can sum it all up in 5 words. If you're not, take advantage of those 150 characters. Like, tell people who you are, what you do, why you matter. Make sure to include your website, assuming you have one, because it's literally the only place on the entire platform that you could put a website. So if you want people to be able to get your website ever from anywhere on your Instagram platform, it needs to be in your bio, or there's no other way to add it. You can like write it, but it's not ever going to be clickable except for right there. And lastly, about a year and a half ago, maybe, Instagram added something called highlights. really they're albums, but they had already called something albums, so they're calling them highlights. So we're gonna talk a lot more about stories in a bit, but essentially stories are ephemeral content. They disappear after 24 hours, and you can create these fun sort of engaging posts. Again, that's gonna be a future tip. Facebook added the ability for you to take that disappearing content and say, you know what, I don't want this one to disappear, and paste it to your to the front of your profile in what's called a highlight. So I always say, like, if you're a restaurant, you might want to have a highlight for soups, one for artisanal drinks, one for desserts. If you're a clothing company, you might want to have one for tops, one for pants, whatever. What is it you do? Separate it out into a way that's like clear and navigatable, and use it to really bring another dimension to the very limited real estate Instagram offers you when setting up your account. So that is optimizing your accounts. We spent a good bit, we have 10 of these to go. Some of them are not gonna be as long, but I really think it's super important, because you'd be amazed how often I look through accounts and see people working so hard on their content, but they never bothered to make sure that it was coming from a place that they put the time into, and it looks like that. And so right off the bat, people are gonna take you less seriously if your account is not optimized. So it doesn't matter how good your content is, so take the time, make sure that you're set up and ready to go, because everything else is gonna be way harder if you're not. Okay, so now we're going to jump into tip number 2, tag and recognize your partners. I always like to say that if you're talking about people on the internet without tagging them, it's the equivalent of calling them without first dialing their number. They might find out, like maybe they're standing outside your door, but chances are they're going to have no idea that you're talking to them if you don't tag them. And if you want to be talking about people on the internet and not have them know, you probably shouldn't be talking about them on the internet, right? Like that, you know, if you're in the political space, fine, but brands, you're trying to build communities. You're not trying to like go out there and start fights. So if you're not tagging people, you're missing a huge opportunity to build those relationships and let those people know that you're engaging with them. Tagging is super simple. This is Facebook, and actually LinkedIn works pretty much the same way. So you'll see I wrote the @ sign and then started typing DreamBank, and I got a drop-down menu, and I select, see how clear and easy to read their avatar is? I know it's them right away. So I select that, and then the @ sign goes away and their name is outlined in blue. That's it. They're tagged. It's that simple. If you're not doing that already, definitely start. That's true on LinkedIn as well. Instagram and Twitter is, I would say, both even simpler and in its own way more complicated, because you sort of have to know what their avatar, their handle is a bit more. So right here, I don't like to shame anybody who makes mistakes, so we're going to see some examples that I cover up who said them. But here is somebody talking about United Way but not tagging them. So United Way had no way to know that that post happened. Is that bad? I mean, it's fine, but it's like a missed opportunity to build a relationship. You're taking the time to write about the United Way, but not to like actually connect with them. Whereas this account, on the other hand, tag United Way, bang, they get a notification. They can turn around, retweet, like, or at the very least know that you are building a relationship with them, and they can like make it reciprocal. This should be true if you're in a chamber of commerce or a business community. Tag your partners. Like, this is all about bringing each other up. Tag them, they'll tag you, and everybody wins together. Tag your influencers in your field if you're going to share an article from somebody you really respect. Tag your customers or your audience members that you love that are always doing great things for you. Like, tag people, let them know that it's a community, because social media is all about community. Okay, so that is the importance of tagging. So now, tip number 3, we're going to talk about cross-posting versus auto-posting. So when you cross-post, you take one piece of content and you place it at the same time on your own, like manually. You put it into numerous different platforms. So you take a picture you want to share, you write some text, you put it on Instagram, then you go put it on Facebook, then you go put it on Twitter. That's cross-posting. Auto-posting, on the other hand, is where you put it in one of those places or anywhere on the internet, and it automatically shoots it out into another place. It's auto-posting. Here's my take on cross-posting. It's very positive. Did you see my little GIF? Here's my take on auto-posting. It's one of the worst things, in my opinion, that people do on social who are trying to build a brand and build relationships. When you cross-post, there are a lot of people in my field who say don't to cross-post. And I disagree with them for one very simple reason. Do you have 4 hours a day to manage your social media accounts? Anybody? No? Okay. So then cross-post. Cross-posting is a great way to build communities in different places. The chances people are going to see your content in both places is slim to none, because most of your content's only getting in front of 3 to 5% of your audience anyway. And if they're seeing it in more than one place, they're probably a big fan. It's an opportunity for you to build more than one platform without killing yourself in the process. If you have the time to put together a strategy that's completely unique for every platform, by all means do that. If you're Nike or McDonald's, do that. If you're you, barely, able to get a post up, twice a week and you're really struggling with it, cross-posting is your friend. Auto-posting, on the other hand, like I said, I think is one of the worst things people do online because it's asking people to come to them instead of meeting them where they are. One of the biggest dangers of auto-posting, in my opinion, is that I find that people who auto-post often don't check that secondary platform. So you post something to Instagram and then it automatically goes to Twitter. I would rather you not be on Twitter than be on Twitter and not replying to people's responses to you. If you're auto-tweeting, people might be talking to you, but you never go on there because it's just set up from your Instagram account. So you're building this community of people who are annoyed with you. I'd rather you not be on the platform than be on the platform and not engaged in it. That's my take. So I'm going to show you all a couple quick auto-posting fails, just because I think it's helpful to see what auto-posting actually looks like in the wild for those of you who are still not completely sold. So Drudge reports a political report. They're actually off social now, but I love this screenshot. You can see every one of these posts ends with a ... and a link to his profile, or to his website. If I want to know what's on the Drudge report, I'll go to the Drudge report. This is not a social media channel. This is asking me to go to his website. He's asking me to do something instead of meeting me where I am. Larry Keel's an amazing bluegrass guitar player. I'm a huge fan of his, but his social is not on point. You can see, for those who can't see, these are all identical. Bandsintown.com. Clearly what happened is he put a bunch of dates into a website to promote his shows, and they spit these out. Could he promote his show in Pennsylvania and Morgantown and Park Street Tavern, even though he knows most people won't be there? Of course. He could tell a story about like an amazing night he had there last year, or a meal that he had, or talk about the amazing crowd he had. There's stories to tell that make me, somebody who won't be at any of these shows, engaged. This is the opposite. It's a press release, not a social channel. Gershon here is a very brilliant thinker. He writes about the Middle East. He's breaking two rules here. One, he posted to Facebook with no content, just a link. You should never post anything without telling, in my opinion, you should never post anything without telling people why you're posting it. A picture, a video, an article. If you can't be bothered to give me even a couple words to tell me, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this interesting? Is this not interesting? Don't bother posting it. The only exception, in my opinion, is pretty much retweeting or sharing a story through Instagram. But pretty much you should always tell me why. So he shared this to Facebook with no content, and then he auto-tweeted it. Who's likely to click on this link? What does this look like? It looks like spam, right? It looks like somebody hacked his account. I'm not going to click on your link. I'm going to unfollow you. And I'm not alone, I'm pretty sure, because a lot of you just agreed with me. So this is very common. I see like this one from Twitter to Instagram, but there's a ... in the end. So it's like she could have taken a moment, finished the thought, and it would have been a much better post instead of expecting me to follow her to Instagram. I see this one all the time, the Instagram link on Twitter. If I want to see your Instagram content, I'm going to go to Instagram. I'm on Twitter. Show me the picture on Twitter. This is an example I use because I see this all the time. For those who don't know, Instagram is owned by Facebook, and they work relatively seamlessly, but there's a problem. What's wrong with this post? The tag doesn't work, right? So this person posted something on Instagram, automatically shared it to Facebook, and he was trying to build a relationship with Ballast Point Brewing in two different places. He failed to build it in the second place, which isn't the end of the world. That's not the issue I have. The issue is he's showing me content with a broken link in it. He's not optimizing his content. To me, this looks like a silly post, and I see it all the time because no matter how seamless Instagram and Facebook are, they're not smart enough to tag the people you're intending to tag. So even this kind of auto sharing is problematic. This is not technically an auto post fail, but I love this example so much, so I'm just going to share it anyway. This is the equivalent of somebody needing more coffee and posting as if they're a robot instead of as if they're a person. So somebody tweeted to Delta, a comedian, "Excuse me, Delta, this is outrageous. I just got sucked through the toilet hole in one of your aircrafts, and now I'm hurtling through the sky. Can I get my money back? This never happens on Southwest." So that was a great tweet to ignore, right? Like it was silly, it was fine, but Delta was set up to pay attention to everything and essentially send out Automon responses. Hello, Drew, I'm sorry to learn of this. Can you provide more detail to what occurred? HBB. Poor HBB is not a robot. That man or woman is a person who desperately needed more coffee before they were tasked with going out and responding to customers' concerns. But Drew very helpfully explained that he got sucked through the toilet hole. I love this example so much, I actually created an episode on my podcast about it. Like, I think it's such a good example of just because you're listening doesn't mean you're paying attention. So it's not technically auto posting, but I really love this example. So learn from it. Correct. I don't think that was his goal, but fair enough. If Southwest was on it, they were tracking mentions of themselves and they would have jumped in, but you never know. So, okay. So that's auto posting. Cross posting, good. Auto posting, please don't do it. I highly recommend against it. Okay. Tip number 4, Facebook events. almost everybody who's got a Facebook presence uses Facebook events. And there's a problem with Facebook events because you can create your birthday party with a Facebook event or your annual event with a Facebook event. And they feel sort of the same, right? But they are definitely not. If you want to create your birthday party Facebook event the day of, that's fine. Hell, you can create it the day after. I don't care. But if you're trying to do something meaningful with a Facebook event, don't wait until the day before to create that post. Create it as much in advance as possible. My recommendation is a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks, but you go look at the Majestics, the music venue, or the Sylvie, their upcoming events. No doubt, 6, 9, even 12 months in advance. The second they book a show, they create a Facebook event for it, but they don't just let it sit. They use that event wisely. So the goal is, once people say they're interested or going to that event, you have to engage those people to remind them. Because just because somebody says they're interested or even going, I guarantee that does not mean they are actually going. And we all know that. The attrition rate's always terrible because we're not like bringing people in and reminding them. So you need to not constantly, but you need to ongoingly remind people that your event is coming and that it's worth coming to. But, and this is my mantra for this, don't solicit, excite. If every 2 weeks you remind me to buy a ticket, I am going to turn off my notifications. Do not tell me to buy a ticket. Give me a reason to want to buy a ticket. It's a huge difference, and it's so important. If all you're doing is asking me to come, I'm not going to come. But if you're enticing me to come, I might just show up, right? And when I say I'm talking about us, all of us. That is people, right? We need to find a reason to want to go. So tell them the food that's going to be there. Introduce them to some of the people involved. If there's going to be music, introduce me to them. You can go live right into a Facebook event. Do a tour of the restaurant you're going to be at. Give me a reason to want to come, or don't bother having an event. Just post about it the day of or 3 days before and move on. An event has to be bigger than just a post. That's it on events. I'm happy to take questions. Like, I could do a whole hour on Facebook events. That's all we're going to do on that one because we got lots more to talk about. So tip number 5, Facebook Live. Raise your hand if you've ever gone live on Facebook. Oh, quite a few. Good. So I highly recommend your brand, assuming you're on Facebook, and if you're not, that's okay. But if you are, I highly recommend you take advantage of Facebook Live. People watch live videos 3 times longer than non-live videos. They engage with them 10 times more regularly than regular videos. These are statistics from Facebook, by the way. 20% of all Facebook video is now being consumed live. I always like to say, these are not the reasons to go live on Facebook. There's only one reason to go live. Anybody want to guess what it is? What was it? Sure, but they could do that with a non-live video. The reason to go live on Facebook is pretty simple. Facebook wants you to. Facebook says go live on Facebook, and the way that they say to do that is they reward you in the algorithm. They want you to go live, so they will show your content to more people. And bear in mind, you can go live on Facebook for 30 seconds, or you can actually do up to 8 hours. It used to be 4. They just doubled it. Of course, don't do that. You better have some really interesting stories to tell if you're going to go live for 6 hours. But you can go live on Facebook as long as you want. It's not just that you get rewarded in real time. You get rewarded after the fact as well. Facebook will continue to promote your content more heavily in the algorithm than if you posted it not live. It's literally that simple as far as I'm concerned with why you should be on Facebook Live. Facebook said so. Like, they know what they like, so do it. So to go live, you can go live right from your computer now. I don't know if you all knew that. That's not that new, but at the beginning it was only mobile. But this is a live video, and it's literally that simple to go live. And then it'll give you the option, add a description. Be specific. Don't just go live and write it in later. Very few people are going to get notifications the way that they used to, right? Remember the early days when you got a notification when somebody went live? Unless you're opted in for notifications, you're not going to see that. But there's a good chance it's going to show up in people's feeds, and this is what they're going to see, whatever you write in there. So if you don't write anything, they're not going to have any context. There's a good chance they're not going to show up. Which of these two is more engaging to you? Mark Zuckerberg is live now. Mark Zuckerberg is live from his old dorm room at Harvard. I'm definitely more interested in this than whatever that is, right? Now, in fairness, Mark Zuckerberg has 2 billion friends, so he can do whatever he wants. If you were trying to find an audience, you follow best practices and give me like some information. I saw this movie. I want to see like the actual, I've seen the Hollywood version of the dorm room. Let's see the real thing, right? Tag relevant accounts. If you're going live from DreamBank, or you're at the Sylvie, or you're watching a band and you want them to know it, make sure to tag them because it's a great way to build those relationships. Maybe they'll even turn around and share it in real time, and there, bang, you just like grew your audience. But even if they don't, it's a great way to build those relationships and to get in front of more people. There's lots of built-in effects and filters. Here I took a fun little video for y'all. So here's a great place for me to give the big old caveat. There's tools, and their strategies. Your strategy needs to be consistent. You know the tools so that you can use them as they're relevant, but do not chase shiny objects. If you are a bank trying to grow your audience and you are using any of these filters, something is wrong, right? Like if you're a lawyer or an accountant, unless you're trying to be the zany lawyer, like this is not in your strategy. It doesn't mean you shouldn't know the tools exist. I highly recommend you understand the tools at your disposal so you can use them when they're relevant, but don't chase shiny objects if they go against your strategy. So I just like to show that they're there, but I'm not necessarily saying you should use them. One other very important caveat, don't build a strategy around any particular filter because they come and go. So if you're like, okay, great, every Monday I'm gonna use this one thing, that might be great for a couple weeks, and then one day it's gone, and bang, you've promised something you can't deliver on. So just an FYI. When should you go live on Facebook? Answer frequently asked questions. Our congressman here in Dane County, Mark Pecan, he does town halls live on Facebook. He logs on, people ask him questions, he answers them. If any one of you did that right now, you know how many questions you get? None. Like nobody's waiting to answer, to ask you questions. I mean, maybe there's somebody in here there, we should chat, but like most people aren't gonna have that. But that doesn't matter because frequently asked questions are a great thing to talk about, and you can grow an audience just around explaining things about your field and making things like more easy to understand how things work. At interesting events, if you're someplace and something really cool happens and you want to share that with people, pop out your phone and go live right now. Give people a peek behind the curtain. If you're a restaurant and you are making some really amazing food and people love it, take people into the kitchen and show them how it's made. Better yet, introduce them to somebody in the back who's making the food. Let me meet the people that are involved in this. Let me know that you're more than just a good soup or a good cake. Let me see the team involved in all this. So lots of times to go live. There's a tool. So I used to share that you could go live, split screen with people right through Facebook. And literally I gave a presentation. I told people all about it. And the next day, Facebook was like, nah, you can't do that anymore. So tools come and go. That is, like I said, with the filters. There's a really cool tool though that I'm a big fan of. It's called BeLive.tv. It's free. They've changed their pricing, what you can do for free many times over the years. But at the moment, you can use it 3 times a month for free, I think for up to 20 minutes. So if you're doing more than that, you got to pay. If not, you're good to go. BeLive is a very cool tool. So she added these subtitles after the fact, but this bottom third, this is Mari Smith. She's she's the Facebook queen. I think that's what they call her. She's awesome. She writes about Facebook. You can see this bottom third where she has her name and her handle. She added that through BeLive live. So while she was live on Facebook, she had that bottom third. Here, these screenshots, by the way, are all taken directly from BeLive. And I don't get any kind of commission or anything. I'm just a fan of the tool, not getting any kickbacks. So these 2 women are having a conversation. I do not know where these 2 women are, but I can guarantee you they're not in the same place. Just look at the backdrops. They're very different, right? So these people could be in different parts of the building or different parts of the world, but they're having a conversation right through BeLive. And this right here is so cool. Somebody asked a question and BeLive gives you the option to pull that question into your feed game show style. They just created their very own Chiron, like a news Chiron. So while the 2 of them are having a conversation about this, you can actually see what the question asked that they're responding to. So it's pretty cool. And then lastly, these 2 guys, again, not in the same place, but they're having a conversation with each other and showing a screen at the same time. So you can actually share your screen while talking. You can have multiple people on the screen. You can share your screen. You can do all kinds of things. So just a cool tool, and it's free to use. So highly recommend checking it out if it makes sense for your strategy. Some things to consider for when you go live on Facebook. If possible, give your audience notice. If something cool happens, a celebrity walks into your store, you can't give notice. Just go live. Of course, if with consent, of course. Don't be that person. But ask for permission and talk to the celebrity. Why are they there? But if you know that's coming, let people know it's coming. Give them a heads up. Check your battery levels, because if your phone dies, your Facebook live stream dies. Pretty simple, right? Connect to Wi-Fi if possible, and consider going on airplane mode if that makes sense for you. Just so you know, if somebody calls you in the middle of a live, Facebook will not drop your your stream, but there's a good chance you'll drop your own stream. It's can be pretty confusing. So if you go on airplane mode, that solves that. Use a tripod or selfie stick. This is not a requirement. People want live in part because it's authentic and it feels real. But you could spend $20 and buy a tripod. I have tripods in my office. I have one in my briefcase. I literally have a iPhone holder, a cell phone holder in my wallet that I can pull out and twist into shape if I need it. Spend $20 and buy a small selfie stick or tripod that you can have on hand. It'll come in handy down the road. Post to your page after. If something goes horribly wrong, you can delete the post as soon as you're done. Or if you're like, this is one-time content, join us in real time, or you'll never see it, delete it when you're done. Facebook gives you the option to delete or post. But if you want any of that Facebook algorithm love, you have to post it after. So it's pretty simple. I'm just clarifying, like you can't get that love after the fact if you've deleted the post. And lastly, link to it from your other platforms. You don't have to do that. That's if you had a particularly great one. You could go share an email to your list and say, hey, we just went live on Facebook with this thing, or tweet about it, or post it on LinkedIn, and let people know what you did, and just share the link so people can check it out. I wrote a free checklist for things to consider before, during, and after you go live, and you can find that for free at bit.ly/Facebook Live checklist. So feel free to download that for free, get some more ideas about things to do before, during, and after you go live. So that's Facebook Live. We're going to talk about stories now. Who here uses stories on a weekly basis? Handful of us. Who's ever used a story? Raise your hand. Well, okay, so a lot of people know what they are. But it's okay if you don't. So Facebook, if you're doing something cool, Facebook was going to try to buy you. And if you say no, Facebook is going to replicate you. It's the own it or clone it method. That's what they do. That's just how it is. They're very public about that. They tried to buy Snapchat. Snapchat said no, and they said, well, let's figure out how we can do Snapchat on their own. Bad news for Snapchat is they did it very well, and they really put a dent in the Snapchat growth model. So let's talk about stories. Stories are 24-hour content. They're ephemeral. They disappear after 24 hours. And when you log onto your Instagram account, here's your timeline, and there's your stories. This is just a screenshot from my Instagram account. Here's your stories at the top. Now, what's nice about them, let's say you go to a concert. How many posts in your timeline can you do from that concert? 2, 3? At some point, it's going to start spamming up people's feed. The beauty of stories is there's no limit because people have to opt in. They are making the decision to see your content, and if they decide that 25 stories was a little much for them, with one swipe, they can skip your stories and move on to the next person, and a couple hours later, they won't even exist anyway unless you share them in your highlights because they were particularly good. So the nice thing about stories is you don't have to worry so much about inundation because people are opting in, whereas with the timeline, they're opting out. If you're spamming people's timelines, they're going to check out 2, 3, 4, 5 of your posts in an hour, and then at some point, they're going to just unfollow you, right? So they're going to get away. So stories, you don't have that. There's also a lot of fun, cool tools built into stories. So let's talk about them. So these are some screenshots from Gary Vee, just another digital marketing guy. You can see he wrote text on top of the photo. This is actually a GIF, so it's like a little moving picture. Here he is asking questions. There's all kinds of built-in stickers in Instagram stories that let you engage your audience. You can have stickers. You can actually have countdown timers that remind people about an event coming. You can raise money for your for your nonprofit if you're verified through Facebook through stickers. All kinds of things. You can draw right on your stickers. Tons of functionality with stickers. So some things you can do with stories. You can go live. There's pros and cons to going live. The biggest pro to going live on stories is that everyone who follows you is going to get a notification in that top part. There's going to be a little badge that says you're live now, and that's pretty invaluable. It's pretty hard to get in front of everybody's feeds at the same time, but that's the way to do it. The downsides, however, that video disappears after 24 hours. You can't share it to a highlight, and you can't download it. With a Facebook Live, you can download it and put it in other places. A story is gone. That said, AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, had the most watched Instagram Live in history, and it was 300,000 people watched it in real time. It's an amazing thing, and she was just setting up furniture, drinking wine, and eating popcorn in a darkly lit room in her apartment. I happened to watch it live, which I don't normally do, and I happened to see it live, and it was very engaging, and then it made news as being the most watched Instagram story live of all time. So people can watch it, but just be aware, it's going to be gone tomorrow, no matter what. Boomerangs. A boomerang is when you see those videos that are, like that, people going back and forth. Yeah? Okay. Everybody boomerang with me. No? So here's my recommendation. If your audience is over 25 and you're using more than one boomerang a month, you're probably overdoing it, right? A boomerang is fine here and there in very small chunks, but do not use a boomerang every day unless your audience loves boomerangs. And I hate to break it to you, but they probably don't. I saw a lot of people rolling their eyes when I even mentioned the word, and that's fine. They're a little bit played. They were great when they first came out. Now they're cute. Just don't overdo it, but they are fun, and they're really easy to create right within the stories feature. You can do video up to 15 seconds. So it used to be 15 seconds and you were done. Now they'll actually let you create much longer videos, but they break it up into 15-second chunks. So if you had a minute-long video in stories, you'd have to share that as 4 different stories instead of 1. Text, you don't even have to have a picture or a video. It can literally just be text right on the screen. Kind of cool. Media that's already on your phone. So when Instagram first rolled out stories, you could only use media that you took in real time. The whole idea was it's live right now. And then people were frustrated with that. So they said, okay, within 24 hours. If you took the photo or video within 24 hours, you could share it. And people were like, no, that's not any better. So they said, okay, do whatever you want. So if it's on your phone, you can share it to stories now. So long as it's under 15 seconds for a video, you can use it on your stories, no problem. All the filters and toys you have in live, like those all exist as well. And in fact, for those of you who don't use stories on a regular basis, a few months ago, there was a big redesign of the stories front page where they actually really started stressing those over all the other tools. So now it's like all the way at the bottom to switch between them. And right there in the middle, like where you would take the photo, you can switch between filters. So if you want your head to look like a hot dog or you want to see 12 of you, all that stuff's built in. It's all a response to TikTok essentially and the continuing response to Snapchat. So 190 million daily active users for Snapchat as an entire platform. This is as of April of last year. They tend to update this annually. So I'll update this in a few months, but this is from TechCrunch. So 190 million daily active users for Snapchat as an entire platform. Facebook Messenger, 500 million daily active users. WhatsApp, 500 million daily active users. Instagram Stories, 500 million daily active users. That's just stories. That's not Instagram. That's Instagram Stories. So 500 million people are using stories every day. I highly recommend you be one of them if you're already on Instagram. You can also use them on Facebook. So figure out how this fits into your strategy and get to work. Okay, so that's stories. I'm a big fan. We'll move on now to groups. So we're going to talk about Facebook groups. Raise your hand if you're active in a Facebook group. Raise your hand if you're active in like 5 or 6 Facebook groups. Yeah, me too. So I'm a huge fan of Facebook groups. You want to guess why? There's a lot of reasons, but you want to guess one of them? Hint, hint, it's very similar to live. Facebook, I am a firm believer that groups are the future of Facebook, in part because I'm seeing it, but mostly because Mark Zuckerberg told me that that's the case. Mark Zuckerberg said that groups are the future, and in the last 2 years, we have seen them roll out a tremendous amount of functionality to take groups from like, it was like a thing you could get together and talk to your neighborhood association to, oh my gosh, you can do anything with groups now, and it's pretty powerful stuff. So the reason this says a lot of people actively use them is because the only way to know how many people actively use groups is Facebook, and I literally found different numbers from Facebook. Those numbers range from 400 million to 1.4 billion people. I don't know what the answer is, so I just changed it to a lot. At first it was a billion, and I was like, I don't know what to say. So it's a lot of people. Give or take a billion people are actively using Facebook groups. There are tens of millions of active Facebook groups. And you can search for new groups at facebook.com/groups. If you have an idea for a group and it doesn't exist, that is great news. You should start it. Groups are an amazing tool to grow your funnel, to connect with people. We're going to talk a little bit about them. Okay, and just an FYI, I do a 90-minute presentation just on groups, so we're going to do that 90-minute presentation right now in 3 minutes. Like, this is the short version, but I am a huge Facebook group nerd, and if you can't tell, here's something I did for fun, because I'm just a big old Facebook group and just generally digital strategy nerd. I got down, I sat down first thing in the morning every day for a while, like a couple weeks, and I counted the first 100 posts in my Facebook feed, and I correlated them based on type. So were they content from friends, other events, ads, pages, or groups? And you'll notice 23.7% of all the content on my first 100 posts every day, on average, was group content. That means that it got through my personal algorithm more than pages and ads combined. I saw not significantly, but I saw more content from groups in my feed than I saw from ads or pages. Now, friends, I saw a lot of that, so great. But you can't build a business strategy around a personal profile, right? That's just not going to work. Pages are still okay, but Facebook has definitely devalued them. They've told us they're doing it. We've all seen it. If you've been using a Facebook page for years, you know you went from reaching 25% of your audience to 10% to 5%. The number keeps going down while groups keep going up. So I highly recommend that you think about where groups fit in your strategy. Before, you could only use groups as an individual, which was a huge problem for groups. Think about Nike trying to start a Facebook group for fitness folks. Is Joe, the marketing intern, going to start it? Or maybe Steve, the marketing associate? Like, there's no way for Nike to have a Facebook group if it has to be run by one of their individual employees. So Facebook solved that problem along with a whole lot of others. Now they can be created and joined by brands. Now, I will actually tell you, most of the groups that are the most valuable for me on a day-to-day basis, I'm part of as a person, not as my brand, but some I'm part of as a brand. So it really just depends on your goal. goals and your needs. There's 3 different kinds of groups. So I'm going to give you 2 different versions of the name because Facebook changed the name and in my opinion, made it more confusing, not less. So I'm going to tell you the original name and then in italics, the new name, just because I think it's easier, even though this sounds ridiculously confusing. Public. They used to be called public groups. Now they're called public visible. A public group, anybody could see any of the content in there, but they can't engage with it unless they're a member. So you can like see the stuff. The windows are open, but not the door, right? A closed group, which is now called private visible, you can see that the group exists. You can see the admins and some of the people in it based on privacy settings. You can read the about section, but that's it. You don't know anything that's being posted within that closed group. And the third version, which used to be called secret, but now is called private hidden, you have no way to know that that group exists unless you're invited in. So I once was working with a woman, she was a doula for people who had lost children, and so I recommended to her, she started a secret group because those people, a lot of them hadn't even told their families that they had been struggling with this, but what a great opportunity, they could come together with other people struggling with it as well. A lot of political groups probably use secret, although who knows, there's lots of secret groups out there that we don't know about. So if you are dealing with a very vulnerable population, a secret group might be a good fit. Otherwise, I'd probably recommend public or closed if you're trying to grow that audience. So. You can ask screening questions for entry. So I said there were a lot of tools that Facebook added to make them better. This is a huge one because before it was just somebody wants to join, you have to make a decision based on what? I don't know, their picture? There's no way to really know. So let's say you run a local Madison Facebook, food group. You go out and you test new restaurants and you write about them and all that. You want local people who enjoy going to good restaurants to be in your group. Well, now Facebook lets you ask up to 3 screening questions. What neighborhood do you live in? What's your favorite local restaurant? How'd you hear about the group? Great way to let people screen themselves out, and you can literally choose whether or not to let them in based on whether or not they answered the questions. Groups are great for connecting around common ideas or interests, and they're great for learning, listening, and connecting. So again, it's not necessarily a place to build a sales funnel. When I started my podcast, the first thing I did was found a Facebook group for podcasters because I knew that if Google didn't have the answer, that podcast group will. And that is literally my first stop after Google. If it's a very quick fix, Google will have it. If not, I'm going to that podcast Facebook group, not to get clients, not to build, anything, just because there's smarter people than me on every issue that I care about that I can go get tapped into through a Facebook group. And let me tell you right now, if that group had not existed, and there's hundreds of them, but if none of those had existed, I definitely would have started one because there's a huge opportunity there. So if there's something in your world like that doesn't exist, think about whether or not it makes sense for you to start one. Okay, that's tip 7. Tip 8, engage, engage, engage. Social media is people. It is so easy to forget that when you sit down at your keyboard and you write these things and you think, oh, the world is waiting to hear what we have to say. I hate to break it to you, they're not. You need to build relationships with those people and relationships come through 2-way streets. It can't be a one-way street. It has to be a conversation. Respond to questions and comments. If you own a restaurant and somebody asks you if you have a gluten-free option and you don't respond, do you think they're going to call you to ask you again? Or do you think they're going to find another restaurant that might have a gluten-free option? You're going to lose the opportunity to build a relationship with that customer because you thought you were talking at them instead of talking with them. And I can't stress that enough. Talking with people is what social is all about. It's right in the name, social. I was the digital director on a very complicated national campaign to create a more pluralistic and progressive Israel years ago. And I was working with a partner organization and we shared this graphic and a woman responded and said, how much longer can we vote? We told her the answer. She said, great. If we didn't tell her the answer, do we deserve her vote? Probably not, right? Pretty simple. She asked a question, we answered it, great, she can go vote. Here's a more complicated one. Here's somebody challenging the very concept of what we were doing. But the thing is, she agreed with us philosophically and politically, just not necessarily with the concept. So we had a conversation with her about whether or not she should join us. And in the end, her last response was absolutely. Do I know she's going to vote for our campaign? No. Do I know she was not going to vote for us? Yes, she told us, right? She said, I'm not going to vote for you, but we engaged her, right? Here's the thing. We did not just have this conversation for this one person. We had it for the 100 people watching this conversation happen. I am never more amazed than when I see a big brand get a criticism online and immediately say, DM us details. If you are Adidas and somebody says your shoes gave us blisters and you say DM us details, you are telling the world, yep, our shoes give you blisters. Instead of saying, actually, we've never heard that. Are you wearing your shoes with socks? If not, we'd love to send you a pair. Still having a problem? Let us know. Then DM us your private information and we will solve this problem for you. It's one thing if they're being a troll, like just there to cause trouble. Hey, your shoes suck. Fine. But if they're saying something legitimate, that is not a troll. That is somebody that you should be engaging, and you should be doing it publicly, because for every one person making the comment, there's 100 people watching that conversation. This is a public platform. Treat it accordingly. That's it. Very simple, right? Engage, engage, engage. Okay. Tip number 9, blog. I highly recommend you blog. If you have a brand and you're trying to get your word out there, you should blog. And there's 3 very simple reasons why. I'm going to try to convince you. Real quick show of hands. Who here regularly or pseudo-regularly blogs right now? Okay, cool. There's 3 reasons why I recommend you blog. 1, it's great for SEO, search engine optimization, for those who don't know. If somebody Googles your name and your name does not show up on the first page, you have very bad SEO. If they Google a generic key term and your city in like your field and you're the first thing to show up, you have amazing SEO. Most people live someplace in between. The best thing you can do for your SEO, short of building an amazing website first, is blog. Because blogging is a great way to answer the questions people are asking online. It's a great way to use keywords organically instead of trying to stuff them all into your homepage copy. So blog, and it's a great way to build relationships through Google. Number 2, it positions you as an expert in your field. By default, if you're sitting down and taking the time to write about your content, you must be an expert. There's a concept on the internet called the 99-1 rule. On any given platform, 90% of the people are consumers. They're the ones reading the articles. Thank goodness for the consumers, or the New York Times wouldn't exist, BuzzFeed wouldn't exist. Like, why would anybody create content if nobody was consuming it? 9% of people engage and contribute a bit. They're the ones going to the New York Times or to BuzzFeed and sharing that article. Or they're the ones commenting on it when they see it in your feed. Thank goodness for them. If it wasn't for them, nobody would see any of that content that's being created. But that, of course, leaves us 1% creators. You can enter the realm of the New York Times and BuzzFeed simply by taking the time to think about your field in a way that's relevant to them. Are you going to be on par with them? Of course not. But you are part of that 1% creators having an opinion about your field. You know more about your field than even your most ardent fans, or you wouldn't be successful, right? Like, you're the expert. Teach your audience what you know. Make them trust you. Build those relationships through blogging. So that's the second reason. Position yourself an expert. Number 3, it serves as a bridge between your social media accounts and your website. Let's say you go out, you hire somebody to build you an amazing website. You spend all your money on a website. How many times can you ask people to visit that website? Once, twice, maybe 3 times. But at some point, you're just spamming people, right? A blog gives you endless opportunities to keep asking people to come back to your site and check it out. So here I wrote a post, this was years ago, 10 digital tips for aspiring activists. Click on this Facebook post. This was a blog post I wrote. I shared it on Facebook. You click on it, bang, there's the post, right? And then guess what? 3 months later, I take a completely different takeaway from this pretty comprehensive post. You click on that, coming back to my feed. So if you're a local shoe company, you might share 10 places you should be hiking in Madison this summer. And you can keep sharing that throughout the summer, and guess what? It's evergreen content. Every summer, you can reshare that list, maybe update it as needed, and at the bottom, there's a link to your store so people can buy the shoes they need to go hit the trails. So you're building that funnel through the blog. You're creating that bridge from a cool social post that somebody actually might want to share. It's not a pitch. It's something interesting and helpful and useful, and you're bringing them in, and it ultimately ends in your store, and maybe they're not going to buy from you today, but you've built a relationship that will last. Use your blog to spell out larger concepts than you could in a social post. So here are the 3 sort of like bucket groups I recommend you create blog posts about. Use your blog to educate. Use your blog to pull back the curtain. Use your blog to engage and inspire. So educate, literally teach people something about your field that they didn't know. Like maybe it's about health, or it's about 10 places they could go hiking this summer. It's pretty good education. Pull back the curtain. Teach me how they're made. Like, tell me about like how you use ethical practices, or you're a BOGO company. So you buy one, you give one. So every time you give one, introduce me to somebody who got a pair of your shoes because I bought a pair. Engage and inspire. Somebody ran up a mountain wearing your shoes. That's a heck of a story. You should be telling that story. Obviously, if they're down to like tell that story with you, that's an amazing opportunity for content. Engage and inspire your audience through what your users are already doing with your product, your service, your thing. And that's true for nonprofits. It's true for any kind of company. How are people excited about your brand? Share those stories. So that's the importance of, that was tip number 9. Here's tip number 10. Understand your analytics and learn from them. If you are posting content to any of your social channels and not ever checking your analytics, you are throwing content at the wall and hoping for the best. Your audience is telling you what they want to hear. Your analytics are how, and if you're ignoring them, you're doing so at your own peril. Your audience is telling you what they want to know. So every one of the social channels at this point has some form of free analytic tools. I would argue that by far, Facebook is the best. Like, it's not even a close second, frankly. Facebook gives you so much data, it's pretty crazy. Twitter's pretty good. Instagram's getting better. LinkedIn's not very good in my opinion, but okay, they're all sort of like working on it. Take advantage of that. So when you go to Facebook, to your page, you go to Insights, that's what Facebook calls analytics. And from there, you can literally see how old your audience is, what gender they are, what language they speak, what cities they live in. You can know what time of day and what day of the week they are online. You can then post accordingly. So instead of sharing now, click that drop-down menu, click schedule, and then you have the option to schedule a post. Now, unfortunately, for those of you who are active Facebook users, you might have noticed that about 6 or 8 weeks ago, Facebook removed the option to schedule right from your feed. I have some ideas about why. If anybody cares, we can talk about it in the Q&A. But there's still 2 ways you can do it without using a third-party tool. And third-party tools are fine, but there are still 2 options you have for scheduling. One, go to Publishing Tools. It's right next to Insights at that top menu bar. 2, go to your Creator Studio. Raise your hand if you've been to Creator Studio. It's a relatively new tool that I highly recommend you check out, facebook.com/Creator Studio. What's cool about it, you can schedule posts for Facebook. You can also schedule or post directly to Instagram right from your desktop. Any Instagram users knew that you could do that? Or anybody excited you can do that? I mean, I know a lot of Instagram people who hate that they have to use their phone. I know one in particular right here. So Instagram actually does have a way to post from desktop natively without going to Hootsuite or Buffer or something, which are also fine right through Creator Studio. Know what posts are reaching and engaging your audience. You can literally see how many people saw a post and how many people engaged with it. If you own a bookstore and there's a dog or a cat that hangs out in the store, and every time that dog or cat is in the photo, it blows up, well, guess what? Make sure that dog or cat is in a lot of your photos because it's on brand. It's not like manipulative. You're not cheating, but you're working your dog into your story. Like maybe you should be sharing lots more stories about books with dogs in them just so you can work them in. But whatever it is, your audience is telling you what they want to hear and you're choosing whether or not to listen. Okay, that was 10 tips. So let's do a quick recap, okay? Tip number 1, optimize your accounts. If you don't, it doesn't matter how good the content inside is. You're telling people you have not been paying attention just by the way that they're getting there in the first place. Tagging, recognize your partners. Otherwise, you're talking to them on the phone without first dialing their number. Cross-post, don't auto-post. Meet people where they are. Don't expect them to come to you. Use Facebook events, but don't just use them the day of. Build towards them, have a strategy in place, and implement it. Use Facebook Live. Why? Facebook wants us to, right? It's a great way to grow your audience to get in front of more people. Use stories. 500 million people are doing it on Instagram, another 500 million on Facebook. You should join that massive community. Use Facebook groups. They're the future of Facebook. I really, truly believe that. I've been seeing amazing success, both professionally and just, as a networking tool, all kinds of things. I love Facebook groups. Engage, engage, engage. Social has to be a two-way street. It can't be a one-way. Blog. It's the best way to position yourself an expert in your field. And understand your analytics and learn from them. Otherwise, you're just throwing things at the wall and hoping for the best. Everybody got their photos of the 10 recaps. That's why I did it. I should have put a little selfie button on there. So bonus tip, and then real quick, if it did not happen on social media, it did not happen. That is a lesson that we live with on every political campaign I've ever worked with. If you're going to a debate, if you're going to a parade, if you're going to a town hall, if you're talking to voters on the doors, if you're doing anything and you're not posting about it, you're not actually doing that thing. And that's how you should be thinking about social. What are the things you're doing that are worth bringing people in? Tell those stories on an ongoing, everyday basis. And with that, I thank you very much.